Can you hear me? Yeah. I talk pretty loud. If I'm too loud, Wes is going to let me know. So, thank you so much, everybody, for coming tonight. It's an honor to be speaking at Tide Talks. I've been to my fair share, and I just can't wait to see the rest of the speakers and the rest of the event that is planned. But first, let's give a big thanks to the Tide Talks team. How about it? Like Dr. Gigi talked about, what I have to share with you as a revolutionary idea tonight is the transformational potential of campus history. And I'm going to tell you that by first exploring how history and thereby, or through memory, can fail, how our memory has failed us in the South, but despite that failure, how we can turn that around and use its enshrinement on campus to benefit ourselves and our community. Before I go any farther, let me say a few more thanks, not only to Dr. Gigi, but to the rest of the history department, who showed me what academic historians do and how they can be active in a community. Let me also thank many other professors on campus who have paved the way for this talk, not least among them Dr. Josh Rothman, Dr. Adam Brooks, Dr. Hillary Green, Dr. Meredith Bagley, Lane McClelland, who is in the back, and a host of others. There are too many to name. Then, I got to do this, you guys. Thanks to my family, my dad and my stepmom are in the back, and I also want to give a big thanks to my grandmother, Mimi. She couldn't be here tonight. She's resting in Capstone Village, but she spent hours talking to me about my family history and has instilled in me a love of not only Alabama, but the South as a whole. She gave me some pictures of my ancestors who have been in West Alabama since as early as 1817, and because of that, I feel a really deep connection to the South. But my story is not about my family history. My revolutionary idea is instead about how campus can transform you. And I think I remember the first time it transformed me. In 1999, my dad, my brother, and I came down to the campus for a Friday night pep rally before homecoming. I guess there was a bonfire, but I don't remember it. I do seem to remember that the grass was pretty yellow back then, but that's hard to believe. Did y'all see how green it was today? And it was. And what I do remember is that Galilee Hall was open. That's not because I remember going up the stairs or that I remember standing on the roof, both of the things you have to do to get into the observatory, this strange metallic domed room with a telescope. At that time it was a lot bigger than it is now, pointed into the universe. And it was the lens in that telescope that first showed me something I'd never seen before that was out of this world. And it changed the way I view not only myself, but the universe around me. Now, I said all of that, but when I asked my dad about the very same event, he remembered it a little bit differently. See, memory is a funny thing. Dad thought that we came down in 2005, way after my 1999 estimation, and he didn't think it was a football game, let alone homecoming. But this just speaks to how memory can fail us. And the danger of memory is demonstrated not only in particular anecdotes that I have, but also in popular culture. Maybe listen to the podcast Serial, where you heard about Adnan Syed's imprisonment for the murder of his ex-girlfriend. But that podcast really draws out how the stories of the witnesses in that trial didn't always add up. Different people had different stories about the same events. Now, to a more relaxed example, relaxed. Who here thought they read Berenstain Bears growing up? I love those books. Yeah. None of you did. It was the Berenstain Bears. S-T-A-I-N. This is one example of what's called the Mandela effect, which is when a large group of people have the same mistaken memory. You can trust me because one of these has a trademark symbol on it. But this just speaks to anecdotal instances of the fallibility of memory. As a chemical engineering major, I like the science behind it. And luckily for us, a research team at NYU challenged our conception of memory into something that explains these phenomena. The old conception of memory looked something like this. You had the initial experience, then you stored that experience in your brain through a process called consolidation, setting a certain neural pathway of neurons in here. Then, every time you remembered an event, that recollection drew from that one bank of memory storage. You can think of it like you bought one World Book Encyclopedia set and kept it on your shelf to reference for the rest of your life. This research team, led by Joseph Ledoux at NYU, challenged that memory was a recollective experience, and instead posited that memory is a creative experience. They found that with each new memory, a new set of proteins is created. And with each creation of proteins, a new source of error in memory is introduced. So instead of having one bank of memories to draw from, when you have that initial consolidation, your first recollection will draw from it. But after that recollection, reconsolidation takes place, and the new proteins store a new memory along that same neural pathway. This introduces opportunities for small changes to occur. Maybe the grass was greener than I thought. Maybe it was 2005. But all of this speaks to how memory can fail us. Now that seems pretty innocuous when it's just one boy's trip to the observatory, but memories, collected, processed, and state-sanctioned, turn into history with all of its requisite power. And history, being a very literary subject, turns me to some of my favorite writers. William Faulkner, as Southern as anyone ever was, said that the past is never dead. It's not even past. Well, that poetic turn of phrase is pretty confusing, but James Baldwin helps us out when he says that we carry our history with us. We are our history. We can't escape it, and it informs everything that we do. But for some of us, history can be a nightmare, like it was for the Irish writer James Joyce, who said, "History is a nightmare from which I'm trying to awake." Well, what makes history a nightmare? Like some nightmares, maybe it starts out in a very almost eerily peaceful scene, like Mars Spring. This was an instrumental place in deciding where the University of Alabama would be set, because it provided water for campus, its faculty, and students. This historical marker tells us in a historical rendition how that water, in a passive voice, was carried from the spring to campus, leaving out who hauled that water up the hill and to the farthest reaches that our university has. In fact, it was slaves, some owned, some rented, some leased by the university, its faculty, and students. And I'm left to wonder, how would this marker read differently if those slaves had written it, rather than the university administrators with an agenda to make the university seem friendly and welcoming? This example of a historical agenda is almost best represented in what is known as the Lost Cause, a dominant school of thought about Southern history, well described through the movie Gone with the Wind. The Lost Cause has three main points that I'll highlight tonight, and a host of others. The first being that secession and states' rights were the cause of the Civil War, not slavery. The second, that slavery was a benign institution that benefited the enslaved people, and that these people were not capable of living independent of a superior white race. Third, the Lost Cause held that the South was united in a noble effort against Yankee invaders. But this story is told from a certain perspective and does not include all Southerners of the time. It obscures the cornerstone speech given by Alexander Stephens, Vice President of the Confederacy, who said that this new government was founded upon the great truth that the Negro is not equal to the white man, and that slavery is his natural condition. This story also misconstrues the experiences, emotions, and capacities that black slaves demonstrated throughout the antebellum period. And it also doesn't tell of the discord throughout the South demonstrated by the free state of Winston, a county in Alabama that seceded from the Confederacy. All of these historical facts point to the idea that the Lost Cause told history from a particular perspective for a particular agenda. One newspaper editor of the time said that we need to foster in the hearts of our children memories of a century of mental and political triumphs. Who was triumphant in these stories? On our campus, these ideas are enshrined in monuments, paintings, buildings, stained glass windows, and geographical features, all of which tell a very specific one-sided history, obscuring the struggles endured by those like Autry Lucy, the first black student to enroll at the University of Alabama, who was forced off campus after only 3 days by an angry mob, and was then suspended because she incited that mob. It also ignores the hateful rhetoric of men like George Wallace, who stood in the schoolhouse door famously. But this is not all that our campus has to offer. Stands in the schoolhouse doors or angry mobs. And in 2004, the process of tapping into the transformational potential of history began. This marker behind the biology building designates the nearby places, it's not exactly located there, but the nearby spots of 2 slaves owned by the university. In 2004, the Faculty Senate issued a first of its kind apology for the institution's role in slavery, leading the discussion on a national scale. Then in 2010, the Malone Hood Plaza was built to honor Vivian Malone, James Hood, and Autry and Lucy for their courageous and sacrificial efforts to break the color line at the University of Alabama. These are great examples of the institutional methods we have to tap into the transformational potential of our campus and its history. But I believe that there is a better way that all of us in this room can contribute, and it comes through engaging with campus personally, individually, and collectively. To do that, I point to 5 main steps. First, during your time on campus, be here now. These 4 years, give or take, are precious and short, but full of meaningful experiences that if you're too busy studying, too busy getting from one class to the next to breathe in the roses, will pass you by quickly. While you're here, know your surroundings. This involves learning the history of campus in both its told and untold forms, and studying maybe the spin that someone may or may not have put onto it. Then, once you know your surroundings, recognize your proximity, not only physically, but also situationally to that history. By virtue of being a student at the University of Alabama, during these 4 years, you are more similar to the people who lived those histories than anyone else in the planet. Think about that and reflect on what it says about our past and ourselves. While you do that, engage your peers and your professors who are also studying these same questions. We have a wealth of academic scholarship on this campus that is eager to talk about this. Dr. Giggy and those others who I named earlier are just a few of the professors leading this charge. Use that resource. But finally, reflect. These buildings are not a lens by which we see some faraway universe, but instead a mirror through which we can reflect on our own experiences, our own values, and our own place in the world. But when you do that, do so humbly. As Harper Lee said it best, remember this also. It's always easy to look back and see what we were yesterday, 10 years ago, but it's hard to see what we are. If you can master that, you'll get along. Thank you.